Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 29th of April. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. How's it going, Jonny?
Good, mate. Good. Glad to be here. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. We're experiencing a little bit of a heat wave down here. It's going to be 23 degrees down here,
Wow.
which is incredible stuff, really. So, a hot one is on the cards. What about where you are up there in across the border? Is it the sun shining?
Yeah, well, it's kind of sort of musky, but yeah, the sun's out, and I'm just looking at the forecast, and yeah, it's supposed to be up to 19, which is basically Ibiza weather in Glasgow, isn't it? So we'll take
That's
that.
half weather.
Indeed,
Yeah, absolutely.
Not for me, but yes.
No, I'm the same. Yeah, I'll be seeking shade, that's for sure. But let's crack on. Before we talk all things Rangers, just a quick word, as ever, for our podcast sponsors, S1 Jobs. If you're looking to hand in your transfer request, folks, head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. And remember, if you want to get your comments into myself and Jonny this morning, make sure you have subscribed to the channel. That is totally free, of course. We just surpassed 28,000 subscribers the other day. So thank you, each and every one of you, for your support to the channel. And a good morning as well to Who Cares, who is tuning in from Davao City. Is that how you pronounce it? The time is just about 4:30 there. Where is that, buddy? Let us know. It sounds like a far-flung place, that's for sure. But good to have you tuning in on this Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon where you are. Jonny, I can see Jonny is Googling as we speak.
The Philippines. Not one I've heard of, I have to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice part of the world. So there you go, fantastic. Right, where shall we start? Well, of course, over the weekend, there was the Rangers Player of the Year Awards yesterday. We touched on that with Chris yesterday, and the PFA Awards have been confirmed as well. No surprise to see no Rangers player in the running for the Player of the Year. Gong Hello Hamza Igamane is shortlisted for the Young Player of the Year Awards. I think that is probably deserved given his season at Rangers. We did touch on Hamza a little bit yesterday and his drop-off in form, which is a tad worrying, I've got to say. But he's on that shortlist alongside Celtic's Arne Engels, Motherwell's Lennon Miller, and Hearts and recent Scotland cap James Wilson. Deserve to be on that shortlist for you, Jonny?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Hamza's been up and down, and you can ascribe that to a number of factors. The key one being that he's not being played as a number 9. And when you don't get that opportunity to show what you can do as a young player, it obviously stalls your development. So I think we've seen a little bit of that from Hamza, but he is a very, very talented player, wonderful with the ball, capable of doing the unexpected, which is rare nowadays. He's a player that can do things completely off the cuff. And that is something that has real value, I think, in the transfer market, and that has real value for Rangers going forward against teams that sit in and play deep and look to hit you on the break, because it's always tough to break down that low block, and Hamza's the kind of player that can pull something off. So I think he's got a lot to learn. He's got a lot of growing to do. But you look at his season so far, what is it, 14, 15 goals, Derek, something like that. And overall, you have to say that that's been a good return for the kind of money that was splashed out for a player who hasn't got a track record in professional football in Europe. And over time, I think you'll see a very, very good player. And it's no surprise to me. I keep hearing from down south that scouts have been looking at him. And I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. He's a very interesting player. And I think that there will be continued speculation linking him with a move away. And if it does happen, Derek, the good news for Rangers is they've got him tied down on a really, really long contract. It's a 5-year contract. So there's still 4 years left. So Rangers don't even have to worry for the next couple of years. He is lock, stock and barrel a Rangers player. And it will take a big, big sum to shift him on.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Alan Hutton has been talking about Hamza and potential bids coming in on the Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports, that podcast to do every week. He said, look, he's young. I think what I've seen from Rangers for a number of years now, they've not been able to sell at the right moment in time. So for me, I think he's done well. He's still young, and I think he will improve and get better. But if a big bid came in for him, you have to sell him. How much are we talking? A big bid of 10 million. I think you have to let him go for the money you brought him in for. For me, it would be a no-brainer. They've made too many mistakes in the past. So 10 million, Alan Hutton says, would be a decent offer. Would you go along with that, Jonny? I've got to admit, I'd be wanting a bit more. Now, I know his form is, I touched on there, has not been the best of late, but he's a young lad developing. I want to see him in a Rangers jersey next season. I think they can get a tune out of him if they play him in the right position, and a new manager might get even more out of him than we have seen this term. 10 million, I know it'd be a really good return on what Rangers initially paid for him last summer, but yeah, that seems a little bit cheap for me.
Yeah, €10 million or £10 million now is not a big transfer fee, and I don't think Rangers would be countenancing that. I get why that kind of fee has been mooted, because listen, he's not set the heather alight, he's not exploded, he's got 15 goals in 43 games, 3 assists, so it's not like we're talking a player here that's scored 30 or 40. That said, if you look at the potential, if you look at the development that we've seen over the course of the season, remember, Derek, he's not played at that number 9 for even probably any more than a quarter of the season. He barely played at the start as he was getting his fitness up, as he was returning from injury. He came on, had an incredible period in the team where he scored lots of goals. It ebbed away, and then he's now playing kind of off the central striker. So I think Rangers can get an awful lot more than that if they bide their time. There will be financial fair play issues around Rangers spending in the summer. How do you kind of maximise the rebuilds? How do you maximise the money that's coming in to ensure that you're able to kind of do the surgery that's required to make this team competitive? And that may well be that it means that these players moving on that Rangers fans would rather keep in the building. Personally, think the more likely candidate for that is Nico Raskin. He's got 2 years left on his deal. He's showing no sign of signing a new one. He's got a history of moving on from clubs towards the end of his contract. If you look at how he arrived at Rangers, he had 6 months to go because he was running his contract down. Rangers have a history of losing players in this situation without getting any financial recompense. If you look at the likes of Ryan Kent and Alfredo Morelos, Borna Barisic, this summer is the time to sell Nico Raskin if he doesn't sign a new deal. It's that simple. You have to sell him in the summer if he won't sign a new deal. And you can get significant cash for him as a Belgian international. He might have reached the point, given his age, given his emergence on the international scene, where it's the perfect time to sell him. As good as he's been, and not a player that you would want to go, but you cannot continue this cycle of not selling players at the right time and holding on to them in the hope that they can be part of something. If you can move Raskin on, then you can use that money to reinvest in the team and rebuild the team. And I think, given his contract situation, for me, that would be the smarter move than moving on Igamane, who in the summer is still going to have 4 years and will still retain a significant transfer value, even 2 years down the line.
Yeah, Janet says he'll be looking for 15 to 20 million for Nico. If he was to move on, it would be interesting to see where he goes. I know he has voiced his ambition of playing for Chelsea one day. I can see him in that Chelsea midfield right now, I've got to say. I think he would look out of place down there. It will be interesting to see what Rangers do with that. I agree with you. It's one of those ones you can't afford to allow him to run down his contract as he did with his previous club in Belgium, which is why Rangers were able to get him for a cut price deal. And one of a number of players reaching a bit of a crossroads, you could say, of their Rangers career. There are many that will depart this summer. Staying with Alan Hunt, another point that he did mention, he was asked which players would you keep from the current squad for the upcoming campaign. And he said Václav Černý, if Rangers can keep hold of him. He says he's been a standout for most of the season. Raskin has come on to a real good game. Diamande possibly suited at the back. I think the back needs a lot of work. Butland, I presume, if he gets back to the form that we've seen. But out with that, I'm struggling to be quite honest with you. So, those are the sort of... Butland aside, I'd be looking to move him on in the summer. But if Rangers can sort of deal out for Raskin, great. If they can sort of deal out for Václav Černý, great. Although I would have my doubts whether he will be a Rangers player next season. But I was on the Q&A yesterday, Johnny, on the extra members show, and someone asked how many players are you keeping for next season. There was probably about a handful, 6 or 7, that guarantee that you want to be part of the squad next season. In terms of players that you're looking to bring in, I think I know Chris Boyd said this yesterday. He said that Rangers need to be looking at about 6 to 7 first teamers. I totally agree with that. I think in the main they need about probably 10, 11 players coming in. If you look at the squad as a whole, I think you need a goalkeeper, 2 fullbacks, probably 2 centre halves, a midfielder, maybe 2 if Raskin leaves. In the forward areas, perhaps 3 or 4, and that's including wingers. Major overhaul needed.
I wouldn't go as far as to say a major overhaul. I used the word rebuild earlier on. Listen, can Rangers continually go in this cycle of 12 new players every summer? I mean, it's costing the club a fortune. It's costing the club the major issues with financial fair play. I think, obviously, Chris Boyd is right about kind of bringing in 5 or 6. I think that the Europa League has proven that Rangers have a good squad for that environment. I think the Celtic games so far proved that the gap between the two sides is overstated. To me, where there's a gap, where there's an issue, and Scott Kearney brings it up in the comments, is it's the spine of the team. It's the kind of leaders, the experienced guys who drag you through, who commit to great standards, the kind of standards that will get you through games against Dundee, that will get you through games against Ross County, when it's the middle of the winter, when you've played in European competition in midweek, when you're tired because you've been on a flight for 4 hours, getting back late in the night. Those kind of guys are the guys that Rangers need. I think it needs to be a targeted spend on 5 or 6. As Chris Boyd says, I totally agree with him, really, really high quality individuals that can come in and make a difference, not squad players. Now, I think there's talent in this squad. There's quality in this squad, but they need a hand. They need a hand to get over the line in these domestic games. And I don't know how exactly they do that. Do they need some talented Scottish operators who are used to doing it week in, week out?
Yes.
You know, we know Mulligan's on the scene. We know Lyle Cameron's coming in. Could Lawrence Shanklin be added to that list? You know, I've been banging that drum for a long time, and now that he's free, I know he's not had a good season, but Derek, far, far, far better players than him have not performed in their final season of their contract. It does strange things to players. I would take a smattering of those guys, especially if you can get them for nothing, and try and complement them with some real quality. Now, it all depends on how many players go out. It depends on the interest in the likes of Cyril Dessers.
Yeah.
You mentioned John Souttar earlier on. I think he's another one. Derek, 1 year left on his deal. If an offer comes in,
he's got to sign a new deal. He's got to sign a new deal.
It doesn't look like he is signing a new deal. A new deal's been in front of him for more than 6 months. We know that because Philip Clement talked about it in a press conference quite a long time ago.
Well, if it's not signed before a ball's kicked next season, it can't reach that stage.
Well, I completely agree with you, and I don't think it's going to be signed unless the new owners come in and spend more money than what is going to be spent at the moment. And while I do think that they will do that, I'm not sure they will move too far away from some of the wage methodology that's been put in place. Do you want to give John Souttar the kind of money that he can earn in the English Championship on a free transfer? I'm not sure that you do.
I don't know if you'd want to go down there. Would you want to go down there at his age, playing for Rangers?
I think if you're a professional, if you're a professional footballer, Derek, you go mostly where the money is. And I think if he was to go down to English Championship, I think he could get 20, 22, 23 grand a week as a free transfer, who's played at Rangers, who's a Scotland international. I think he could get really, really good money. You've got to remember, we're talking about a guy in Ben Davis who was able to get a salary up to nearly 30 grand a week. And I think John Souttar is a better player than Ben Davies. So it tells you a little bit about the kind of money that you can get down south, and that you can use to get a better deal when you move on to another club. I just think John Souttar has got really, really amazing attributes. You know, he's I don't think he's slow. I wouldn't say he's quick, but I don't think he's slow. He's decent in the air. He's good with the ball at his feet. He can come out and link midfield to defence to midfield. He's absolutely fine with the ball at his feet. No problems there. The problem is, every so often, he's got what I would describe as a brain fart in him. You're going to get 4, 5, 6, 7 John Souttar mistakes a season. And some of those will be punished, and some of those you'll get away with in Scotland, as we saw at the weekend. I think there was 2 instances where, if that had been a European competition, you'd have been heavily, heavily punished. So for those reasons, I think I would be looking to sell John Souttar if he doesn't sign a contract. I certainly wouldn't want to carry him on for another year with him knowing that he's leaving at the end of the season. Potentially get yourself into another situation like what the club had with Morelos, what the club had with Kent, where you got really, really half-hearted final seasons out of them because their eyes were elsewhere. They didn't want to get injured in case they ruined their opportunity to get a big move. So I think something has to be done there.
Yeah, the issue with me, when you talked about players and bringing in guys to give the squad a hand, you look around that squad, how many winners are in there, guys that have got over the line in league championships, not just in Scotland, but elsewhere. Hadji and Tavernier are the only ones that were there. Liam Kelly, I don't know if it's part of the first team squad, but Hadji and Tavernier, of course, have won a title with Rangers. You look around, who else has won league titles there? There's not many winners in there. Discounting League Cup triumphs, it's league titles, league winners that you're wanting in your squad. And for me, Rangers don't have enough of them. Guys that know what it takes to last the pace. Just thinking, is there anyone there that has got that experience in the squad? For me, there's not really.
Do you know what, Derek? A lot is made of this, but everyone has to win their first title at some point. And
no, I know
think
that.
in Scotland, listen, I think in Scotland, and I probably do it myself, we have a propensity to go down the mentality route. It's mentality, you know, it's where's Richard Gough? These guys, they don't exist now. There's a different culture for young people. You know, smartphones have changed it. Satellite parenting has changed it. You know, it's a completely different culture. And going out and expecting someone of Tav's generation to be like Richard Gough, number one, he's not going to be like that. And number two, it's not going to work. I mean, you know, everyone who is surrounded by young people know that there is a different mentality for people in their 20s today than people in their 40s and 50s. It's different. It's you know, there's a different style, and in some ways it's better. In some ways, people look back and say, I preferred it when it was a bit tougher, a bit harder. But that's just the way of it. And I don't know if it's about mentality, you know, because there's times when this team have shown real mentality and coming back and performing well against better sides in Europe. I think, honestly, it's a technical issue. It's a problem for a coach and a sporting director to solve. I think the quality of the team has been shown against Fenerbahce, against Bilbao in that first leg.
That mentality, though, I mean, that's big games. They feel it. No disrespect, but the likes of St Mirren, Dundee, Ross County.
Is it mentality? Is it mentality, or is it?
Well, they can't get up the games, can they?
It's not been built for that challenge. Because for me, Derek, honestly, it's technical. They've not been built for that challenge. They're a team that thrives on attacking into space. They're very, very good in that. That's why they're good against Celtic. That's why they're good in Europe. I don't think it's mentality. I don't. I think it's a trope. It's a thing that journalists and pundits have been thrown about for 20 years, so they're comfortable in saying it. It's too easy for me. I've done it myself, but I think that if they didn't have mentality, they wouldn't have done some of the things that they've done this season in the bigger games. And I think if you look at the kind of games that they're consistently struggling in and the kind of performances they give in those games, yes, like some of it is about not doing the basics well and there's other issues going on. Of course there is. But I think if you add 5 or 6 really, really quality players to that squad, I do think it makes a big difference. It's you look at like Rangers fans in general. I think from the ones I speak to, there's a lot of them that have an issue with James Tavernier and its captaincy and the way he is, and how much I think pain that he's seen over the period of time that he's been Rangers captain. I do understand it. I've often backed up James Tavernier because I think he's been a wonderful player for Rangers in a sea of mediocrity. Yes, he's made mistakes, but to me, he's been the shining light for the vast majority of his Rangers career. Obviously, he's getting older now. You can't expect the same levels from James Tavernier, but I think he's been okay this season. But if you look at Barry Ferguson and ask him about James Tavernier, as we have done in the media about him, he'll say Tavernier's a brilliant leader. He's great around the place. He's my captain. He'll stand by him 110%. Now, who knows more about Rangers leadership than Barry Ferguson? I mean, in all seriousness, Derek, this is a guy that captained a team full of international players in the Advocat era, that dragged a team by its bootstraps to a treble against what was a fantastic Celtic side. He knows about Rangers leadership, and he's put his reputation on the line by saying that he backs James Tavernier as skipper. So the point I'm just trying to make is, and I know that will divide opinions.
Well, it has in the comments.
Yeah, and I knew it would, but who knows better about these things than Barry Ferguson, a guy who's in the building? There's more to leadership than just shouting on the pitch. You know, there's a lot of elements to it, and a different style of leadership is required for the guys in their 20s today, and you got to understand that.
Yeah. Lots of support for your comments, Johnny, although some disagree. Chris says Johnny has lost the plot. So
well, it's not the first time that's been
no,
said.
not universal. I like this analogy. Rangers on Tour says this team is like a guy trained in karate. They can compete in a karate tournament but have no chance in a street fight.
It's not a bad analogy, that.
Yeah, absolutely hit the nail on the head with that one. We need street fighters in there, please, in the summer. And there was a comment earlier saying that Rangers need to start bullying teams. Want some bullies in that starting 11, please. The new owners, if they are watching, I'm sure they're big fans of the show. Go out and get some proper guys that are well versed in the dark arts and what is required to win a league title in Scotland, because they've not had those guys for a good number of years now. That's what they require. They almost need 2 squads, if you like, one for domestic football and the one for Europe. You have no issue with that because, like you say, Johnny, that they have sort of been built ever since Gerrard stepped into the building. He's restored, and the managers after him have restored that credibility in Europe for Rangers. So it's a weird one. I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago when we were growing up. Rangers were, of course, the premier team in Scotland, sweeping all before them. But apart from 92, 93, the two never went hand in hand. A European campaign and a domestic campaign, really. Advocates team did play well in Europe, but they never really got that far in the grand scheme of things. Walter's run to Manchester is the only other such occasion, I think, when Rangers had a great season domestically and also in Europe, but they don't tend to go hand in hand, really.
Absolutely, Derek. If you think about how different these two challenges that I'm about to put to you are, right? Going away to Bilbao or going away to Kilmarnock, right? So at Kilmarnock, you'll be on a plastic pitch against a team that has got 10 men behind the ball, probably 5 at the back, that are sitting in a very, very deep pair of lines, often with the striker coming back into those lines and saying, right, come on and break us down. Their only plan of attack is often balls into the wide areas with runners, set pieces, Now, you can apply that. It's not just, I'm not trying to dig on Kilmarnock. I actually think Derek McInnes is a really good manager and a very good tactician. But the point is just that on the plastic pitch, the style of football, and then Rangers going from that, where they have to be relentlessly moving the ball quickly, attacking with real vigour, determination, going in 50-50s, really, really strong at set pieces, really strong in the air. And then you go away to Bilbao, and it's about the complete opposite. It's about you sitting back, you become the Kilmarnock, and you're looking to hit on the break. I mean, the two ways of playing are so enormously different. How do you kind of square the circle? How do you find a way to play in both ways?
Yeah.
And I think one thing's for sure, Rangers as a club, and I've said this on here before, but I think it's worth repeating. It's a club that can't really have a demagogue. Sorry, not a demagogue. Sorry, a guy who's completely fixed in his opinion. Ideologue is the word I was looking for. You can't have a Philip Clement who's like, we have a story, and this story is 4-3-3, and there might be like subtle variations on the 4-3-3, but it's always what we do. Because I think it's been proven that fundamentally Rangers need to change for different games. Now, that 4-3-3 worked really well for Philip Clement in Europe, but sometimes you needed to change it up, didn't you, domestically? Yeah. We all thought that. We all saw what happened, that teams just learned how to play against Rangers, the same patterns repeating themselves over and over and over again domestically in Philip Clement's tenure. I think what we do need going forward to see is that a Rangers manager is able to adopt something of a horses for courses approach and adapt to the different challenges that he faces, you know. And I think if you have one of these managers that's coming in, that's like a child of Guardiola almost, with this massively fixed style of playing, way of playing, and plan B is to do plan A better. I'm not sure I've seen any evidence to say that works, Derek, for Rangers. It worked for Celtic with Ange Postecoglou, but I don't think his European record at Celtic really holds up to scrutiny. Being toughed out the league, by toughed out competitions by the likes of Midtjylland and Bodo Glimt. So, a club where there's a relentless desire to perform on every separate competition, then I think you need someone that's got that kind of level of flexibility. And to be fair, the one thing I would say about Barry, I don't think it's been a success, obviously, at this point, but he's shown tactical flexibility and he's looked to try and change things up against different teams to take on different challenges in different ways.
Yeah, you almost need different players for the different competitions, really. And it's a tough one. It's something that Rangers have struggled with, of course, certainly domestically down the years. Let's hope they can sort it out for next season. We touched on the striker situation a little earlier on. Craig Moore has been speaking on the Go Radio. It was asked whether Kevin Nisbet scored at the weekend, 13th goal of the season on loan Aberdeen from Millwall. Moore said, I think he's 28 and there is talk of potentially Aberdeen might not be able to afford him, or money might be an issue. I think he would be a good fit for Rangers if they're looking, which I'm sure they are, looking at every single position. He took his goal brilliantly at the weekend. He said he's coming back on himself and his anticipation in terms of just to sometimes stand still, but to come back and volley finish it the way he did. So, that is what Craig Moore had to say. It was a player linked with Rangers. I think it was January 2024, I think, when Rangers, for me, had to go out and get a striker. I think he was available at the time, or was it the summer? I'm not entirely sure. But the move never materialised. Kevin Nisbet, still a fan of him. Jonny, is he someone that you would be opposed to seeing at Ibrox?
I think Kevin Nisbet's a really good player. I liked him a lot when he was being linked with Rangers the last time. Obviously performed really well at Hibs, and left there for a really, really good fee, going down south. It hasn't worked out for him. He's now at Aberdeen, and this season I think he's had a very up and down time of it, Derek. We talked about the performance of Hamza Igamane, and to be honest, the numbers are pretty similar from Nisbet, although he's played, I think, about 10, played about 10 less appearances. He's got 13 goals, 5 assists in 34 appearances for Aberdeen. You might be better drilling down into the kind of goals per minute. I don't know. I think at a few of these times he's been a sub. Do I think he's good enough to play week in, week out for Rangers?
If you could choose him or Shankland, Johnny, if you had to choose one of them?
I'd take Shankland all day, every day over Nisbet. I think Shankland is capable of the absolutely sublime, but he's also a great penalty box player. And I think he has shown over the last 3 seasons that he can do it consistently. I admit, I hold my hands up and say he's been poor this season. There's no doubt about it. I think Hearts have tried to use him in a different way. You have to remember that Hearts have had a really, really bad season themselves. They are struggling. Yeah. They're struggling in the wide areas to create things. They don't have a lot of pace in the team. You can see that whenever you watch them, they've moved to this kind of diamond formation that the fans are up in arms about, and it puts a reliance on the fullbacks, and they don't really have 2 buccaneering fullbacks, so everything has to come through the centre. Listen, people say I'm making excuses for Shankland. I think on a free, that's a complete no-brainer to get him. He's a guy that scored over 20 goals for Hearts for 2 seasons before this one, and has shown for Dundee United previously that he's capable of great things in this league. I've always liked him as a player. I think he's a good footballer, first and foremost. He's not quick, but if you're talking about someone who can deliver the goods in the Scottish Premiership, to me, he's just an obvious signing.
Well, he's another example of why you shouldn't let players run down their contracts as well, you could say, because he's been well off the boil. This is an interesting one. Mr. Horses says, I'd rather Sakala came back than give Aberdeen money for Nisbet. I seen Sakala's Instagram post the other day, sort of montage of images celebrating goals for Rangers with a bit of a message about next season. People were reading a lot into that. Bring him home is what I say. I do miss the fash. I was a big fan of Big Sakala up front. Although it was money that Rangers couldn't turn down at the time, Johnny. It was good money.
I liked him too, but he's another one of these players, and Rangers have had so many of them over the last wee while that just you can't rely on to give you a steady performance one week to the next. Fashion Sakala could be a 9 out of 10 one week and a 3 out of 10 the next. And to me, as much as a lovely guy, a nicer guy with the media you could not meet. He was phenomenal. He's a quotes machine. Always really enjoyed talking to him. And I think he's a talented footballer. But to me, he's just one of those guys that, as a manager, you couldn't hang your hat on. You just don't know what you're going to get. I always thought he was okay against Celtic. I think in the big games he got himself right, and he was dangerous. But week to week, personally, I'm always looking for a player that you can say, I know roughly what he's going to deliver. And if you have players like that, then I think you can predict where you're roughly going to be come the end of the season. If you've got players that are wildly inconsistent, you do need to have others that can come in and of a similar quality who can push them on. I always remember in that McLeish year with the treble, I'm terrible with years, Derek, so you'll be able to remind me. I think 2002, 2003, or 2003, 2004, I can't remember. And you had Neil McCann and Peter Lovenkrands fighting it out for that left-hand side position.
Yeah.
And Lovenkrands would obviously become a striker later on, but you always felt that if one wasn't performing, the next one would come in. Wingers are obviously, by their trade, they can be inconsistent at times. It's very rare to find a winger that's going to give you a really, really good level of consistency, because their game thrives on being able to pull something off that it's unexpected. But having that depth of the squad, with you have a really, really good player and then a really, really good player behind them, you're kind of not losing any quality out of the team. But what you're doing is you're saying, right, personality, go in and push your personality on this game, because that personality wasn't working. And I felt that overall you got a really, really, really good return on that back then. I always felt going forward, if you've got a player who can be inconsistent, you want to have someone that's almost at the same level or at the same level who can really, really push you on.
Yeah, it was 0203, I think, the original Helicopter Sunday season, I think. Mr. Horses comes back and says, "You're telling me you would like to see Sakala and Dessler together?" Can you imagine a front two pairing? It might just work. That might be
some games it would work. In some games it would look genius, Derek. That's the problem.
We'll wrap up with good luck to the Rangers youngsters. Who cares gets back in touch. It's Glasgow Cup final today. Rangers against Celtic. They meet at Firhill tonight at kick-off at 7 p.m. and the match on Rangers TV and Premier Sports as well. So good luck to the Rangers youngsters and Stephen Smith there. Interestingly, no public sale of tickets for the final. I wish they would sort that out and get fans in for that game. It really is unacceptable for me that the punters should be able to go along and watch the youngsters in action. But let's hope they can win that Glasgow Cup. Right. Big thank you to Jonny, as ever, for joining us on the show. And a big thank you to you all for tuning in. Very much appreciated, folks. If we don't speak to you later on, then enjoy your Tuesday, whatever you are doing. And we'll chat again tomorrow. Until then, bye for now.